The following podcast is an RMG Media production.
A Renaissance woman fearlessly takes risks, commits to self-improvement, and gracefully embraces her weaker days. She understands that her dreams are worth the fight, tears, and pain, prioritizing herself as the most valuable asset in both life and business. Uniquely irreplaceable, she embodies grit, determination, and a warrior spirit, overcoming challenges with battle scars that enhance her beauty. In 2024, it's the year of the Renaissance woman. Time to rise, thrive, and ignite the powerful woman within. Our highly anticipated fourth Renaissance Women's Summit is a value-packed one-day event featuring unparalleled networking, enlightening panels, interactive workshops, and inspiring keynotes led by top-notch entrepreneurs and female leaders. Acquire the knowledge to become a true Renaissance woman in business. Join us at the fourth ever Renaissance Women's Summit on February 24th, 2024. You can use the code podcast to get 20% off your tickets. We'll see you there. Welcome to the Renaissance Podcast, a podcast for Renaissance women
and men
who want to create a modern-day Renaissance in their life and business.
We interview some of the most successful entrepreneurs and share their unique stories.
Are you ready to create your Renaissance? No, Chris, obviously, major career. Insane, like what you've accomplished from an athletic perspective, and now how you're taking that and just like with this business. It's so admirable. And I think the word that I was just thinking driving over here today, I was like just thinking the word discipline and how not many people have it, right?
Yeah.
And not many people have it from all the ways that you have it. You have it from a physical way, spiritual, I know, mental, emotional, because athletes, you have to have discipline in all of those areas to hit the NFL,
It takes a lot of work, a lot of discipline.
Can you speak on that? Like, is that something that you have had since you were a kid? Like, how did you, it's just, I'd be so interested to hear you speak on it.
Yeah, I think growing up in Mississippi, and my great granddad farm. He's a farm guy. My granddad took over the farm when my granddad passed away. My granddad was also heavy machinery, bulldozers, you name it. He's done it all. And so the one thing that as I was starting to grow up, he would say to me is that no matter what you do in life, I'm gonna teach you how to be the best at it. And I don't mean I'm going to teach you how to do something, then you're going to be better at it. It's going to be, I'm going to teach you how to work hard. I'm going to teach you how to be disciplined in what you do. And so he taught me that throughout my life. And I think that's what has carried over in all the things I've done because of those little statements that he made. And it was not just a statement, it was the example. He had that combination of a leader of, I'm going to speak these things out to you and eventually you'll understand it. But then I'm gonna also show you with and how I work and how I do things. And so I was fortunate and blessed to grow with a granddad that was able to really, cater to those things or where you can just see it. Because I wasn't a kid that was very verbal. I just watched everything. And I can see something one time and I can do it. And so early on, I was 7 years old when I started driving a tractor. And I remember standing up on a John Deere tractor, couldn't sit down because I couldn't reach but I was standing up, gearing and doing all those things. And because I was just sat there and watched my granddad do it for a long time. And so, it's been in my DNA for a very, very long time.
Wow. So I feel like as a kid, it sometimes can take kids longer for those messages to resonate. The messages of hard work and work ethic and, just try and do your best type of thing. It sounds like that kind of resonated with you early on in your...
Yeah, because I was forced to have to grow up really fast because my mom had me when she was 15 years old.
Wow.
And so we grew up together.
Yeah.
And watching, again, I was very observant in the environment that I was in. And so watching my mom work multiple jobs and I always wanted to be the kid that was doing the right things and not causing trouble and paying attention so I can at some point get big enough and strong enough to actually help my mom. And so, again, I'm a big believer, and things happen for a reason, and I don't think it was me. I think that was that angel dust that was sprinkled on me that that God had for me to be that kid, to be observant, to learn, and to have that kind of drive to want to be that kind of guardian and doing it in a way of some type of work and building things and using my hands or whatever that may be. I've done a lot of odd jobs in my life.
Wow. Okay. That's really changing the game of the conversation. I did not know that about your mom.
Yeah. Yeah. She was a very young mom. And I wouldn't be sitting in this chair without her, even though we didn't have a lot, 4 kids, no dads around, and her being the provider, working, 2, sometimes 3 jobs. But then also, being that stern rock and within the school systems and things like that, because I was diagnosed early on in life as a kid with dyslexia, and I think that's where a lot of my focus and paying attention come from is because I didn't have the words, I didn't have the language to use, and so I just early on I just watched and paid attention, and as I got older and started to get into the school environment, it became that embarrassing thing for me. And so in order for me not to be ashamed or embarrassed or for people to like me, I outworked them. And I showed up in a way that allowed people to not question anything else, but look what he's done. This kid is, 11 years old and he's plowed up 1,000 acres of, a field, or he's 13 years old and he's just taken a motor out of a car with no help. He's paid attention and learned and watched these things. And so, okay, well, he's shown up on the football field and he's played well. He's never really played football. He's pretty good at this. So I've done things that people really look up to and think's cool, that has kind of kept people from really getting into, knowing some of the struggles that I've had when it came to, being a dyslexic kid. And so, which also, now what I know is, has given me these, being able to see and solve problems in ways that, a lot of people don't get a chance to experience.
So being, going through that as a young kid, I mean, I can't even imagine just the insecurities that you would have, as a young person, especially when you're growing and you're just trying to navigate youth,
Mm-hmm.
but then you have that added element to it, which just would make it even more challenging. At what point did you start to get past that not being confident? Because I mean, you're looking at you now, going to the NFL. I mean, you have to be confident, right? You have to have a certain level, right? But I believe there's a level of being confident, but also being humble, and you're 100% that. But do you recall when you started first, getting to that point where you were kind of breaking out of it?
You'd be surprised. It wasn't until I was getting ready to retire from the NFL.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah. And so a lot of my success was driven by a lot of my fears and a lot of my shame and embarrassment of having those struggles and not wanting people to know. And, at one point I thought I had built up enough reputation where it wouldn't matter anymore. But there's always something that knocks you back down, that comes up, that you're like, oh gosh, you're still there. And so I remember getting ready to retire from football, and I was looking at, my wife is from Vancouver, Canada, and we spend our off season up there training, with 3 kids. And I was sitting on the couch one day and there was a ad popped up about dyslexia. And I remember just kind of blanking out and making a phone call to that number. And a lady answered the phone, named Sue Johnston. And she said, Sue Johnson here, with the Dyslexic Center. And I was like, oh, I have no idea why I called this number. And she was like, well, do you or your kids or anybody have dyslexia? And I was like, oh yeah, I was diagnosed as a kid with dyslexia. She said, well, have you ever done any kind of programming? I was like, I haven't done anything. And she's like, well, today's your lucky day. I have 2 weeks open. I have a 2-week course, typically booked up for the year. And this is my 2-week window of break. But for some reason, I feel like you need to come see me.
Wow.
And I got off the couch, drove down and visited her that same day. and end up taking that course. And in that process, start to realize that my skill set that I have, that I've developed over these years and, with my dyslexia, um, has set me up to make a transition into an environment that can can go really well with the understanding of who I am and how do I navigate these spaces. And I took that course, and um, I remember coming home and praying with my wife, before bed one night, and I said, God, whatever door you want to open, open. Whatever door you want to close it. And my wife looked at me and was like, I never heard you pray that prayer. And I was like, well, probably because I never felt comfortable enough to say that out loud because I never wanted football taken away from me because I feel like I was afraid to make that leap outside of the game. And 2 weeks later, come back to Nashville, I tear my Achilles before I sign my extension. And that was my retirement present. I remember rolling over with such joy in my heart and just smiling and saying, God, you got a great sense of humor. I hear you. I close that door. And then I jump into whatever you have in front of me, what you want me to do, and how you want me to navigate in this world. I'm confident in who I am now to do that. And so I get a little bit choked up about it because that was the first time that I felt like I've kind of crossed over that barrier of that shame and worry, and because of I started to really understand who I was and what my skill set was
Wow.
bringing to the table.
Wow. And
Yeah.
what a lesson. I mean, I love that you said I was afraid to pray that being in the NFL because you were so worried that the door would close for you,
Oh
right?
yeah, I want to do. I always said I'm gonna be the guy that they're gonna have to wheel me out in a wheelchair. Whatever injury that I get, I'm gonna work through it because this is the thing that I felt the most comfortable. The space that I felt absolute confidence in my whole life.
In that space.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it's like the real magic happens when you get outside of that comfort zone.
Oh yeah.
And you know that.
And he's pushed me way outside my comfort zone. I tell you that.
Wow.
Way outside my comfort zone since then. And so I'm flying on nothing but faith, and saying it's nothing that I'm doing and what I stand for is about me. And so it's been a journey. It's been a stressful one, but it's been a journey.
Oh, can't even imagine. Have you always had such a unshakable faith?
No, I mean I've remember going to college and I've watched some things. I grew up in a church, and I've seen some things that were happening in the church that just it went against everything that biblically and scripture was teaching us, and that I was watching these leaders, and my early years in college, I completely went away from it, and it was a guy named Wes Urey who was over at FCA at Ole Miss that he would constantly come to me and poke me and prod me, and I would just kind of yeah, Wes, I come check out FCA, I come check out FCA, and I would never show up, and then finally one day, he and I had some one-on-one, and I kind of just broke down to him and just said, look, Wes, I've been scarred because of some of the things that I've seen that just it didn't align with what I thought it should have been.
Yeah.
And, and it's been leaders. And so he dug in with that with me and helped me see, I was putting my faith into man and in a way that wasn't supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so he kind of got me back out of that space, and again, now I just, I know who is, my strength, my rock, and whatever comes my way, I know he's not going to put too much on me that I can't bear. And so I believe in that. And even when it's stressful, that's the thing that I always go back to.
Wow. And how I'm curious about your relationship with your wife. She seems amazing, and your family is just beautiful. At what point did you all get together? Like, were you at what point in your career?
Believe it or not, we got married when I was we met her freshman year in college at Ole Miss, my sophomore year in college.
Okay.
And so we were married. I got drafted in 2005. We got married. She still had another year of volleyball to play. We did a 3-year long distance relationship because
Wow.
she transferred from Ole Miss to Coastal Carolina in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And so we did 3 years before we even,
Wow.
before we got married, a long distance relationship, time change and 10-hour drive to go see her.
Crazy.
But yeah, we've been married now almost 19 years, 3 kids.
That's a long time. That's
Yeah, I know,
amazing.
that's a long
And
time.
you were like babies basically when you got together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love that. And I love those stories too, just because I think being married to someone that's, got a career like that, that's no easy thing for the spouse.
No, not easy at all. And, and to make matters worse, she goes back and goes to finish her last semester of volleyball and then comes back to finally get back to Seattle. 3 years later, we start having kids and now we're having kids while I'm going into training camp. So, a week before I go to training. Well, I think the first Jackson was a month before training camp. And our training camp is away. So I'm going away for a month.
And she has a 4-week-old.
4 hours away, And then we had my daughter Madison. I didn't learn my lesson because it was also during the season, going into the season. And then
timing.
And then again, some people may look back and say, I think you've had this planned out because then my third came along and he was doing the season. So
you're like,
and so I'm like, gotta go. And it's like, all right. It's funny because I remember Mike Holmgren was our head coach at in Seattle, and I remember we first had Jackson. I fell asleep in a team meeting. And I woke up and he was standing over me. And he puts his hand in front of the whole team on my shoulders. He says, hey, I know you just had a baby, but you need to effing figure it out. And I remember going home and I said to my wife, I was like, Mike Holmgren just embarrassed me in front of the whole team. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm trying to stay awake and help you and all that. And she was just like, you know what, just sleep in another room and, you got to be ready for work and all that. And so she's been, unbelievable, amazing. And again, we have a couple of kids that are atypical kids that, is high functional autism and things. And that, she's done thousands and thousands of hours of research and making sure that they have all the resources and stuff. Again, I wouldn't be here without her and overseeing and keeping our hands on our family, making sure kids have what they need so I can go out and do what I do.
That's incredible. I just love that. And, it takes a village. It really does.
It does.
And
I don't know how my mom did it with four kids with no dads around.
Well, when you said that, and you said it was like there was just an angel. I mean, my dad, he, similar story, had a very young mother, no father in the picture, in the picture at all, and was just turned out like you. I mean, just very, very, very successful and so driven and so disciplined. And I've just always looked at him and just been like, but how?
Right.
But how?
Right.
Because look at you and same thing. It's just like, it's absolutely remarkable. And you look at just anyone else and, that has an incredible, parent and mother and father situation. And it's like, it's just an added level, but for me, it's just an added level of so much respect for you and how you've, again, done this multiple times, hit success milestones, of course, on the field, but now look what you're doing with Mental Metrix. Like, I want to talk about that.
Absolutely.
At what point did you start the business? Where were you on your journey?
When I originally retired from football, I started another company that was looking at injuries and bringing new modalities into the training room for athletic trainers and physical therapists. And in that process, we were, I assembled a team of cranial specialists and strength coaches and physios to really look at a lot of different components of the body, whether that was a structure, the nervous system, the chemical makeup in the body, and then how do you train all those systems in the right way that will reduce injuries. And so in that process, we started to really look at, our team started to dive into personalities, because you would think that the programs that we were building, it didn't require weights or anything like that. It was just prehab type programs, and they were so challenging. And so I wanted to know, like, what personality does it take to do some of our programs so that we don't overwhelm certain guys with certain programs.
Right.
And so that was kind of like the first ideal. And then I got a group reached out to me telling me about their social media tool that they had. And that tool was used in a way to scour the web and look at, from a legal standpoint, some things, and it gave me the idea of, like, if as we are looking at what's happening right now with a lot of guys not knowing who they are, a lot of changing environment where coaches are not understanding who players are because social media had gotten so big. Kids coming in needing to be pampered in a way that it didn't resonate with the old school coaching style. And so when I started to gather all that information, I started to realize, like, how do we help solve this problem? Because it is contributing to 75% of guys being broke or divorced within 5 years. And so because I can say that because of looking back at my journey, I mean, I lived it. I was one of those guys who wasn't prepared to make that transition until I just, again, that sprinkle all of a sudden, like, hey, go do this. And no one was nudging me to do it, just a little sprinkle, go do this. And so what I wanted to figure out is, how do we understand who people are, the human inside the person, the human inside the athlete, in a way that can bring success to them on and off the field of court, but also make it a win-win for the organization who is giving you an opportunity, from a financial standpoint, from a life dream to be able to go out and play in front of a lot of people, that they can also maximize the potential of who you are, and understand who you are, and maximize the ability, those things, that the resources that they put around and put in place, that they spend a lot of money on for these resources, to actually see you as a person, to help you, get out of your way, because we get in our way, especially as young people. And it's, again, what I do is not just about athletes. It's about people. It's about the human. And so helping people understand who they are and how do they navigate through different spaces, we realized there was a gap there.
What is the mental process like when you leave the NFL? Like, what does that look like? Like, I mean, I just feel like the common perception would be like, I mean, maybe feeling lost, a little bit. But then there's also probably the more common perception, which is like, I'm crushing it. I'm awesome. And people that don't know and that don't have the education are probably like, oh, he's just rolling in dough.
Yeah.
Like, just driving his Ferrari, and he's good and he's thriving. Yeah. But that's what I'm hearing. That's not the case.
That's not the case. I mean, they, from the outside looking in, it's like, look at these guys. They can go play golf anytime they want. They're young. They've made a lot of money.
Right.
They don't have to do anything for the rest of their lives. Well, that's not the case for most guys in this league.
Wow.
It's not the case. You have to have some things that you can fall back into and do. And then also you have that competitive side of you, the competitive nature of it that comes out. And then you mesh that with this feeling of fear. You mesh that with the feeling of, I've been told that I'm great for a very long time. I've been cheered for. It's not a restaurant I can't walk into. There's not a,
You're this big guy,
right,
you stand out.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you start to blend all those things together, and then you think going into the real world, it's like, wait a minute. I've been told what to do since I was a peewee kid playing football all the way through high school and college and pro. Somebody built my training schedule. Somebody built my travel schedule. Someone built my workout for me, my nutrition plan, all these things. No one showed me how to do this. And all of a sudden, there's reality of, like, coming out on the other side of it. It's like, how do I even do a little simple, my own workout plan? How do I do my nutrition? Because I just been handed a sheet. Here's how you do this.
What do I do?
What do I do? I'm just showing up at places. What do I do? And now you're on this side of the curtain of, now I got to figure out how to manage my time. How do I build my own schedule? Now I have to figure out, how do I now, go into a room and receive a no and be okay with it.
Yeah.
Like, how do I say, hey, what's this concept of a sales cycle? It's like, I've just snapped my finger and things happen. And so,
I'm just me.
Right. And so, of course, as when I first started my business, it's like, oh, this is going to be easy. Like, I just make a couple phone calls and things are going to happen. And realize
and it wasn't that case.
That's not the case. And so there's a lot of undoing things that you've done for a
It's like
long
reverse
time.
engineering.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of, it's the glamour of like showing up and being on TV and things like that. That's like,
Couldn't even be.
that falls away really quickly when that curtain closes, the curtain closes on you.
So it's
not
like
it's not ease you into this close. It is as soon as that foot is out, boom, it closes.
And not to mention just, I feel like a lot of NFL players like yourself, they do step into entrepreneurship right after because kind of like, what are you going to go work for the man after being in the NFL? Like, and I'm sure that some of them do, and I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everyone to each their own. Do you? But I have seen a lot do that. But I feel like that's also like there's even entrepreneurs that aren't at NFL, there's no school for that, right?
Correct.
So then it's like getting out of this long career and having this incredible experience and opportunity, but then also having to like be like, oh, but how do I start from ground zero and build? Which is like, what most entrepreneurs are in anyway. So what is like the framework that what does the cycle look like for your clients? Like, how do you start?
Yeah. So what we do is we like to get into organizations and understand, what type of culture are you trying to build? Because it's very important to understand that. Because there's no right or wrong when it comes to personality and behaviors and communication styles. There's no right or wrong when it comes to those things. It's what are you looking for to drive the culture that you're trying to build? Are you looking for an analytical type communication style? Are you looking for a communal type leader? We have to understand those things before we start our process. We like to understand 4 or 5 key people on your roster, which tells us a lot about the culture you're trying to build. And then once we understand that, then we are now able to take what conversation we've had with you as an organization, understanding some of your key players. And then as you're starting to look to place certain positions, now we can then help you make sense of, does this fit? And give you more insight into who is this person?
Right.
And do they fit what we're trying to do? Not athletically. Because when you get to that level, there's the difference is very slim.
Mm-hmm.
It's the other side, the mental side that really kicks into play to have a strong, sustainable career in the NFL or in sports in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing about it?
My favorite thing about what I do is that we get to remove bias. And so we haven't really touched on like our process, but our process takes language, your language, removing the Likert scale type questions, which if you're ever taking a personality assessment, when you're checking the box, you're like, what do I want them to think of me in this moment with this question? Then you look at it from if you're trying to be objective about yourself, you can say, if they ask you a question that has to do with, is there someone that you think in your life that is at the gold standard at number 10? Where are you in that? Well, we have our own bias because we know that we have levels to get to that place. Right. And so then do I score myself lower because I feel like I'm at level 2 and they're at level 10? And so that's our own personal bias that we add into these type of assessments. And when you take language, you remove that. Because just like we're having a conversation, like I am not nervous. I'm not, feel like I'm trying to impress anybody. So I'm just being myself.
Right.
That's the language that we want. Doesn't matter what the question is. It's just getting you to use your language because most of our language is made up of content words. They're very important words to really understand the makeup. Now you can add these style words and different things that can make it really, sound really pretty. But those function words, those are the words that we grow up in our environment, in our culture that doesn't change.
Yeah.
And 6% of our language is made up of that. And so think about how hard it is for you not to use I, we in different days and things like that. How hard would it be for you to consciously think about not using them.
Oh, it'd be like impossible.
Right.
You'd have to watch your every thing.
Right.
Wow.
And so
how do you get to that authenticity level that I feel like you're talking about and like trying to achieve with them?
we do it in a way where we look at language in a lot of different aspects of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And so not just social media, but when you combine what you're doing from a social standpoint, what you're doing from a interview like this, or some type of press conference, what you're doing from when you're, from a writing of an email, or just answering some open-ended questions, or what does what does this image mean to you? Take it in a lot of different areas, brings in things into a fuller picture. To know how you can get to more of that authentic side of who people are,
right?
Where you're not worried about the data being skewed, or we've mismanaged what this information is kind of spit out for what this person needs and who this person is.
And then when you kind of are doing this work, what have you seen the result of it? Like how is it enhanced performance, like on and off the field?
Well, just an example, we've worked with a team that player and coach who had a very struggling dynamic. And this player is a really good player, and coach is a really good coach. We always think that the really good coaches and really good players are always on the same page. And in this particular case, it wasn't. And so running their profiles on their language and having and being able to overlay them, we have these things called radar maps where we can take two different personalities, overlay them, and then we can see where the differences are. Which it sounds, it sounds like fluff, but when you can identify several areas that people miscommunicate and not understanding based off what they are used to seeing, then it creates some discord within their relationship. And so with this example, being able to sit down, again, we have a team of psychologists. And so we have psychologists that help you really make sense of what this information means. How do you then take, no different than a preacher. I use this in language where you can take the Bible and then help you understand how this affects you in your daily life. And so we do that a lot with our psychologists, where to get this information, distill this information down. Again, we've made it very simple for coaches to read, but then how do you put the practical aspects of it from a performance standpoint?
Right.
And so we're able to bring that sports psychology lens into the performance side of it to then say, here are the two things that you need to have a discussion about. And when you guys get clear on these two things, then you will see a change and a shift in your relationship. You don't need to get overwhelmed with all of this. But here are the two things to focus on. They did that. And now this player has played out his mind all season.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's just one example. I'm sure there's so many more.
So many that's gone the other way without having the right resources around them. And so that's why our focus now has been that, we're heavily focused on the college space, because there's this uptick in this transfer portal, uptick in NIL deals, which is the name, image, and likeness for players to maximize for themselves. And the transfer portal is where a player can transfer to schools because they want to.
Yeah.
And so what we are seeing in that space is that it's become very frustrating for coaches. And it's also, in my opinion, unforeseen consequences around resiliency and being able to work through those type of things. Because I remember my first day at Ole Miss, for a first week at Ole Miss, I called my mom and said, come get me. College football is not for me.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, why? Like, what were you feeling?
It was the hardest thing that I ever done in my life. I remember, my first workout, I was a 700-pound squatter coming out of high school. And I remember my first set of squats was 5 sets of 10 of 500 pounds, my first day of starting training. And then right after that, going out and then running, 10 to 110 yard sprints, timed and
your legs
recovered.
Probably wanted to fall off.
Yes. And it just kept picking up each day. And on top of that, trying to get myself out of bed, get to class, and do all those different things.
And do well in class.
Right. And I would just call my mom and say, Mom, I know you don't want to hear this, but you got to come get me. College football is not for me. And the best thing my mom could have done for me was hang up on me.
She's like,
she hung up the phone, click, and she.
It's a good mom.
She refused to answer the phone for 2 weeks.
So what do you think she was saying without saying in that?
Pull up your bootstraps and get it done. Because
I love that.
There's no way I'm letting you come back in my house.
Which, was she an empty nester at that point? Because
no,
not yet.
Not yet.
But she was getting close.
She was getting close. And
so she was like, I'm almost there.
Yeah.
Which at that point, was she like 30 or something?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
So
I mean, it's wild. My mom's like 56, I think, 57.
That's
so it's
just
wild.
Incredible. But again, I mean, that is, and I feel like it's been a trajectory your entire life. I mean, you've had people since the farming days just kick you. Not actually, but you know what I mean? Like just get you, just do it.
But
hard work.
Imagine if how different my life would be if she would have said, okay, baby, I'm coming to get you.
I'll be right there.
I'll be right there, baby. That Southern mom. Okay, baby, I'm coming to get you.
I do.
Imagine if she would have done it, how different my life would have been.
It's such a lesson for parents.
And for kids to sometimes it's okay to be uncomfortable. How do we sit in this discomfort and get better? And I had to do that. And I had to do that in a place where I went from being the number 2 lineman in the country, the number 1 recruit in the state of Mississippi, going from that to 0. It was like I didn't exist amongst these older veteran guys. And it was very humbling and what I needed to really sit and learn. And again, I say these things because I want kids to really understand that it's okay to sit and learn. It's okay to work through some of those stresses. You don't have to walk on the field and be ready to play because you have this dream of playing in the NFL. I was a year and a half starter at center and got drafted as a first-round center. And so it was the process that was the important piece that set me up to be there. And we are getting distracted with all the money, all the jewelry, all the different cars.
The quick grab.
And it's not going to change. It's a fleeting moment that when you look back at, again, I'm a living example of it. If I would have taken those things, if I would have done those things, how different my life would have been.
Man, that's really, really good. It's the love of the journey. It's the love of the growth. It's the love of the craft. And it's the love of what you're doing for yourself.
Yeah.
And for who you're becoming. That is the real piece. And I love that you just said that. And I feel like your kids, I'm sure they sometimes want to roll their eyes right now. But
yeah, my kids, I tell you.
But I mean, I think it is such a lesson for, like you said, for parents, for young people, to just know sit in that discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
We have to.
That's what builds grit, resiliency.
Yeah.
And without it, because we all have trauma in life, and we all have some form of trauma. To get to that level, you have to have some form of trauma. And it took me a long time to really realize what that meant, because you think about trauma in a way of, sexual abuse, going off to war,
right,
those type of things. But when you grow up in an environment without, that father figure, when you have this thing called dyslexia and that anxiety that it puts on you, those are those micro trauma that gives you this place to be successful. But at some point it stopped working for you. And so you have to be able to sit in discomfort so you can be aware of when you need to make changes and work through different things. That's why it's important to really understand who you are with inside, because once you understand that, then you can hear the signs, you can see the signs of now it's time for me to grow in this area.
Right. And pivot. And that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Because we're in it for the long game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just because we're one, like you said, one door closes potentially. That doesn't mean that your other open door isn't even better.
Yeah. Well, I have on my board in my office now, and my staff is taking a long time. They keep asking me, "What does that mean? What does that mean?" And I think they're now just starting to pick up the hint when they come into the office and they say, "Hey, we're having trouble. We're having trouble with this." And my first response is like, "Good. Tell me more about this." And I use that good phrase because it's always an opportunity to get better. If something is not working, that's a good thing. Because now we have some resources to figure out how do we make this better. We have knowledge, we have data now. We can make this better. You know, this person said no about doing a contract with us. Good. Now, how are you going to get them to say yes?
What are we going to learn from this?
What do we learn from it? What are the blockers? Who are the blockers here?
That's so good. I love that, being someone with a team. Like, you, as the CEO, you get problems every 5 minutes, right? There's a problem, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, let's look at this as a positive. If we're losing this client, if we're losing this contract, if this client is unhappy, if you're in the service
Right.
industry, it's okay. How are we going to not let that happen again?
Right. Let's look at our process.
Let's look at our process.
Yep.
Our team, we're starting to do like postmortems on clients that aren't re-signing with us,
Right.
and I think that that's important to not just to do in this industry, but in life. If something didn't work out, let's like really analyze that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I
Yeah.
love that you have that on your board. That's really cool. Give us some tips on leadership. I'm curious about that from you.
Well, I mean, leadership styles is very different. I'm a very communal leader, per my report.
Right.
And my style is, because I'm such a visionary and I understand who I am, I'm not a very detail-oriented person.
Big picture.
I'm a big picture thinker. But now that I realize that about myself, I've surrounded myself with people that I can give the big picture to and say, now let's get into the details of it. You guys going to help me with the details of this.
And execute. Yeah.
And being that type of, having that type of awareness, my leadership style is not to micromanage my team. It's to set schedules, timeframes of when when things need to be delivered and let them do their job. And so, realizing made a lot of mistakes along the way when it come to hiring certain people and how do we work together, and how do I identify those A players. And early on, taking a lot of shortcuts of like, as I'm building this from my own heart and my own pocket, it's, well, if I hire this person, then I don't have to pay this much. If I do this, I don't have to, pay as much. And so learning, throughout the process of like, it's important the type of people you have around you. If you want to go to the next level, you have to have the A team. And so if you're hiring an A team, let them do their job.
Get out of their way.
Get out of their way. And this company is not going to be successful because of me. It's going to be successful because of the people, and because of the trust that the athletes on the other side, the coaches on the other side, knows that I've been in those shoes, and that everything that we do and how we do things is going to be a reflection of, this is going to help you. Data collection is important. Science important. The literature is important. And we are going to be fully transparent in all those pieces so that we have that trust. And so it's not just I played in the professional sports that you can trust me. No, we're also going to show you how we're collecting our data, what we're doing with our data. We're also going to show you what the science and the literature say about this data. There's no black box here.
There's case study. Yep.
And so, so that's how I view leadership style, is just fully transparency, and let my people do their job. And, and again, there comes with challenges. You get challenges in certain things, but being able to reset quickly, which is part of, my my background as being a center in collegiate and in the NFL is that we had to make decisions quickly because our job was to make sure everybody was on the same page. So again, another skill set that transfer over into what I'm doing into the real world, because you have to go up to the ball. You got to have a snap count in your head. You have to have 2 or 3 plays in your head. You have to read the defense. You have to know what 5 to 6, including your running back sometime, what's their blocking assignment. And when that play changes, you have to be able to communicate for everybody to make those adjustments. And so that has carried over into this world with me. It's like being able to see the big picture, making sure, knowing everybody's job.
I think it's interesting that you are such a, well, this isn't interesting, but I'm interested in the fact that you left, NFL and started this business. I know there was some in between there, but you're such a team camaraderie person. And I love that so much that it seems like that was a trend from being such a team camaraderie person since Ole Miss, right?
Right.
Because you can't get out of football, right, without being a team person.
Right.
And letting your team be like, it's not me being the most successful person, right? It takes all of us.
Right.
And I think that I say this a lot on this show. I just think that entrepreneurship, like we've taught, it's so hard. It's so isolating. It's so, there's a lot of negative around it, even though it gets glorified as being this sexy, amazing thing. But there's so much beauty in building a strong A team, as you said.
It's the sports has a way of weeding out those things for you. If you're a selfish person, eventually your athletic ability is going to go away because you're going to get into a room where someone is just as talented as you are. And so sports has a way of humbling you, weeding out some of the negative behavior. If you can't get on board, then you're out. And so having that foundation and going into this world and like having this ability to visualize things and want to build it, and then having those challenges, but knowing that you have the willpower because you've gone through those challenges before to stay and stay steady because it's what you believe in, but also that because you're such a team player, that the impact you're going to make in people's lives is what it is. It's not about how much money things are and what the cost or how much money you're going to make. It's what kind of impact can we make? And those things carry over. And that's what I get up every day and excited about, that I can do something that will make an impact in people's lives. And I just.
Yeah. Your why has to be greater than the
Absolutely.
Transaction.
Absolutely.
And I love that.
Yeah.
Well, okay, as we're wrapping, curious about how you balance being a dad, being a husband, being a business owner, having friends. Like, how do you do that? Because it is a lot. And it is when you do love what you do. And when you're so passionate about what you do, it makes it harder to detach and to go home and to not be on your email, right? Like I get in trouble a lot at my house because but I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm in my email because I'm, just like looking for angry clients. Like I am excited and there's so much awesome opportunity happening for us. So I'm just curious how you do that, if you even have a process for it.
It's challenging. It's challenging trying to balance it all. But what I've been blessed with is, I've been blessed as an entrepreneur with the privilege of having a first career that was so successful, where I am not worried about where my bills, how my bills and things are going to be paid, which, unfortunately, not all entrepreneurs have that ability to build their fortune, particularly early on. And so because I have that ability, then I get to ratchet things up and slow things down in my own time, my own way. And so very important for me to be at all my kids' sporting events. I have, again, my wife was an All-American volleyball player in college. So we have, some really athletic kids. And so they're playing all kinds of sports. And so
Shocking.
so I do have the flexibility to be a part of that. And I do, again, I work all the time, you know. I'm up in the middle of the night doing things and, but I make sure I focus on what's important at time, at downtime, when it's time for dinner, there's no phones, there's no emails, there's no calls. We're focused as a family at dinner time. When it's that time when I'm just sitting on the couch hanging out with my wife, there's no phone, there's no computer. And so a lot of times that where we get to really connect and be intentional about, whether that's, playing a board game or watching a show, that we're not back and forth on our phones, or we go out for a dinner that, we, putting our phones away. And so just being intentional about how we spend that time. But it's a challenge because of all the different aspects of, what we do. We have a farm, we have 200 acres, and that we do, where, it's my land therapy, as I call it.
I love that.
Where I get to go out and get on my tractor and I disc up fields. And again, we've made it a family thing now where the kids go out and they go out help and
200 acres is a lot. That's like, no, but I'm like jealous. That's like a dream, especially being in your world and just how your whole career has been, and just being able to just be out in the country is amazing. Plus, that's what you grew up with.
That's what I grew up. I mean,
yeah, that's all you've known, right?
I know. I joke all the time. I spent my whole life trying to get away from this farm, all this hard work. And then all of a sudden I look back and I was like,
back on the tractor.
I'm back here in this tractor sweating and, and jumping
Glamorous.
up and down. And it's like, okay, this piece of equipment broke. Now I had to fix this. And it's
Wow.
but I enjoy it. It's just, it's my piece, and it's, where I get that, get to unplug and not feel like, I'm getting overwhelmed in a lot of spaces. So
Do you find that you're better about taking care of your mental health now post NFL than you were before?
absolutely. I am a strong advocate of, taking care of yourself first. And that's not being selfish. It's taking and really understanding, how do I continue to grow my journey as a human, as a person, so that I can be there for all of the people that I want to help. And so when you look at our logo with mental metrics, it's an infinity symbol. And then within that infinity symbol, there's two dots. And it symbolizes that our human journey is constantly evolving. Our mental growth is constantly growing. Everything about us is constantly moving. And there may be a period where you get stuck. And then when you get stuck, that awareness to how to get unstuck, get that journey back going again. And so that's a huge piece for me. And like the things that I've done and seen over my life, why it's important to continue to grow. Like, I've spent time at onsite.
Yep, I know all that.
I've been there to really dig into self, understand my family origin. And, again, I made a reference earlier in this conversation about, you get to a place where you're the old ways, the old skills that you've learned doesn't serve you anymore. And so you can't optimize yourself. And so how do you get out of those guardrails and get beyond that? You have to continue to do some things and work for yourself, and not say that I can't go to therapy because it's, that's whatever. It's about your journey, about how do you continue to optimize yourself.
Yes.
Because when you're optimizing yourself, you're optimizing the people around you.
That's
because
right.
you show up different. And so, and again, not perfect by any means. But what I do know is that I have the awareness to know where I need to go and do some work.
Yeah.
And so and again, being around a team of psychologists, they let you know quickly.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hello. Let's do a little.
Let's have a conversation. Let's do some
breath work,
some breathing here.
Yes.
And so again, like I say, I've been very fortunate and blessed to again, see some things and then really go after it and be and have strong conviction about it, and surrounding myself with people who really understands all the different dynamics at play when it comes to psychology. And then also from a technology side of things, understanding that correlation. We've just built a great team that can to really
optimize all of that.
Right.
And use the opportunities that we have to make the most impact. And that's exactly what you're doing. You're making so much positive impact in the world. And I think it's so remarkable. And I love these like heart-centered conversations. I'm just so grateful to know you and excited about so much that you've got going on. So tell our audience where we can follow you personally and, find your daughter and talk about Taylor Swift. And you mentioned the infinity symbol. And now I need you to go home and tell your daughter, Sydney said there's some Easter egg about the infinity symbol in Taylor Swift. There is.
Well, you can find us at Mental Metrix, and that's Metrix spelled with an X, and metrix.io. You can find us there, which go check us out because there's some cool things happening. We just dropped some data around the Super Bowl. And so we're taking a different approach to how we understand the dynamics between quarterback and head coach as it relates to outcomes of games and who has the mental edge in these games. And so go check us out there. And we have a lot of blogs going where you can read and understand and learn more about what we're doing. You can also find me at LinkedIn. And we have a Mental Metrix Instagram as well, where you can go and find and see all the new and exciting things that we're doing and conversations that we're having. And so yeah, we are
amazing.
We're moving.
Well, you're crushing it. It's just an honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much. This is such a timely episode for the Super Bowl out Sunday. And I just appreciate you so much. So thank you for coming on the Renaissance podcast.
I've loved it. It's been awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right, Chris. We'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good day.